I went through Anthropic's presentations, documentation, and spent many hours looking into skills myself, so you don't have to.
In this video, I will share with you 10 best practices for writing skills.
Number 1, skill structure. Every skill has a certain structure. Every skill has a directory with the skill name. So here we can see some of the skills that I have. We have my skills on a global level on the user directory, and then we have the skill submit to App Store. Inside of there, we have a skill.md file. Skills can be on a global level like this, or they could be inside of your project on a local level in a separate .cloud folder. Besides skill.md file, which consists of some markdown instructions and YAML front matter, which I'll explain more about later, there can be bundled resources, which can involve some scripts, references, or assets. Now, scripts are some executable code, so this helps to make things more deterministic and can help with repetitive tasks. And references are like the files that you sometimes pass to Claude to give it extra context to be able to answer your question. But instead of passing it as a file to the UI, it will be put inside of this skill directory. Assets is something that's not very common, but for some front-end skills, it might be useful to add some icons and fonts in there. Now let's take a look at a skill.md file. This is one of the skills from the Anthropic repository for PDF processing. If we look here, it can extract text from a PDF. So if you would ask in Claude Cowork or Claude Code, I want to know what this PDF is about, it might use this skill. Now here is YAML front matter. So what is that about? We can see a name and description of what the skill does, extracting text and tables, merging, splitting documents, and filling out forms. Why do we have this? As we all know, LLMs have a limited context window. And if we would load the full markdown for one skill, it would be okay. But if you have hundreds of skills, then there would be no more context. So what Anthropic did is something very clever. They added this description and name in the beginning of a skill, like a short summary that the LLM can use to decide whether to pull the full information from a skill or not. So if you ask a question about what is inside of this PDF, it will look into all the descriptions and then it would find, hey, I can use this skill. And then only then it will pull the full context. Number 2. Now, what's important is how do you write an effective description so your skill actually gets pulled. There's 3 things you want to do. You want to mention what it does. You want to mention when to use it. And you have to use the third person because otherwise the LLM might get confused. So here is a good example. What it does. The PDF processing skill extracts text and tables from PDF files. It fills forms, merges documents, when to use it. Use when working with PDF files or when the user mentions PDF forms or document extraction. Now here's a bad example for an Excel analysis skill. What it does, analyze Excel spreadsheets, create pivot tables, and generates charts. But it's not clear when to use it. So this will mean that the skill can be used in cases that it should not be used, and it might not be used when you actually want it to be used. Number 3, skill naming conventions. Many of these conventions are similar to standard coding best practices. You want to use gerund form. You want to use verbular form, processing PDFs, analyzing PDFs, words ending in ing. This will help make it clear what your skill is about, make it easier to find useful skills from others. And if you have a skill collection with your team, you can maintain a level of professionalism. You want to avoid vague names. You want to avoid overly generic names like these and reserved words like Anthropic Helper or Claude Tools. Number 4, if you have more than 100 lines, use table of contents. If you are sharp, you might have noticed that when Claude Code is running, it's doing some processing. Every time it gets a file, it's very often using this command, head100. This again is similar to what we saw with the YAML front matter. If you get all the context of a file, you can easily fill the window. So the clever thing is it only reads the first 100 lines. Now what this means is that you want to make sure that it's able to figure out if it needs to use your skill. So then you add a table of contents describing the main things that are happening inside of the skill, and it will help a lot. Number 5, if your skill has more than 500 lines, we want to split it up in references. This will help increase the accuracy of the performance of a skill. Here's an example for the PDF processing skill. Now we have also added the ability to fill out a PDF form in here, and we can see a reference to forms.markdown file. Number 6. When entering references, we want to avoid deeply nested references. Good. Going one level deep. Let's say you have your basic skill.md file and you have advanced.md inside, then you have just some references in here. Now, the bad thing to do is to have a reference to advanced.md, and then inside of advanced.md you also reference details.md, and then you are actually giving the information finally in details. Only go one level deep. This will give you the best results for your skill. Number 7, organizational patterns for references. If you have no pattern, then it's usually a high-level guide with some references, like this. Then we have the domain-specific organization. For this big query skill, there are various data sets available: finance, sales, product, and marketing. So it makes sense to put this in 4 separate references for the 4 different domains. Number 7.3, conditional pattern. Sometimes you can have a couple different flows for your skill. So for docx processing, you might have creating documents, editing documents, and then it references 2 different things. 7.4, the examples pattern. One of the skills in the Anthropic library, internal comms, it mentions various types of internal communication: company newsletters, status reports, and then it references some examples, like you can see here. And when we look inside company newsletter, it mentions the instructions of how to do it. Number 8, avoid time-sensitive information. For you backend developers out there, if you have different versions of your API, do not mention dates and times in there. Like this. If you're doing this before August 2025, use the old one, otherwise use the new one. Use an old patterns section, like this example. The new API endpoint is this, and then the old one is that. Number 9, use consistent terminology. Again, these are basic programming best practices. These are basic programming best practices. If you're talking about API endpoints, do not use API endpoint, URL, API route, and some other different synonyms. Stick to consistent terminology. Number 10, avoid offering too many options. If we have libraries for PDF processing, do not mention PyPDF, PDF Plumber, and many others that are possible. Stick to one library, like PDF Plumber. And then you could have, for example, again, a conditional flow like this. In case we are talking about scanned PDFs requiring OCR, you use another library.
And now there's 2 bonus tips.
Number 11, avoid, for you Windows users out there, avoid Windows-style pods. Unix-style pods with forward slashes, they work across all platforms. So this ensures that your skills can be used by everyone. Number 12, using MCP tool references. If you have MCPs inside of your skills, mention this format: server name dot tool name. Let's say we have a BigQuery skill with a BigQuery schema tool and a GitHub skill to create issues. Then you want to mention both the server name as well as the tool. So if you don't mention the server name, there might be accuracy issues.
If you like this video, smash that like button and hit subscribe, and I see you in the next one.